Welcome to another episode of the TwinSpires Jury. Nick Tammaro here. Glad to be joining you on this episode. We're going to be looking at this weekend's races, and joining me to do so is my man James Scully, who is definitely ready. James, we're serving up stakes this 4th of July weekend, right?
That's right. Going to focus strictly on my end on stakes races, and excited to watch the little fireworks as well Friday night.
Definitely ready to do so. There's a great racing all weekend. Of course, make sure you're playing along with us at TwinSpires.com. So best bets, fades, and what to watch are on the agenda. James, let's get right to it. What is your best bet for this upcoming weekend?
I'm going to take a swing on Friday's race number 8, the Grade 3 Manila Stakes, with number 1, Maui Strong. 15-1 on the morning line for Dale Romans. This is a son of Ken's Joy. The Manila is a 1 mile stake for 3-year-olds on the inner turf. It's got 2 big names, in my opinion, in there. Zulu Kingdom coming off a win in the Grade 1 American turf, and Reagan's Wit, who looks like an up-and-coming 3-year-old turf potential star for Cherie DeVoe. But I like Maui Strong, Nick, and I like him on the front end with Junior Alvarado in this spot. I thought over the winter, when Maui Strong finished 3rd in the Dania Beach and then head 2nd in the Ken's Joy, he was more of a stalker at that time, a little bit more of a relaxed off on the early stages. But I thought in that Transylvania, he really ran. He showed improved tactical speed, earned much better pace numbers on the Brisnet scale for that effort, and really ran a strong race. I thought he was in a tough spot, having to make a move inside of the pace setter in that race, and striking the front between calls. And while he got run down by Tescore and another runner, I thought by Scipio, I thought that was a real strong effort. He didn't break in the American turf. That race is a throwout. He comes back here in this allowance race. And I know it's a non-winner's of one other than, but this was a good field. Native runner who wins this race and just got a perfect setup. Came back and ran a real good 2nd in the American Derby last weekend. The runner-up was exiting a close 3rd early adopter in his first race versus winner. So in that race, Maui Strong, Nick, was keen early. I mean, he was under a stiff hold, tracking the top 2 early. And then, just really, I thought made a little bit of an early move in there. And if you look at how fast they were going, he's making he's basically advancing. They're running the 2nd and 3rd internal fractions in that race in 23 seconds of change. It was just a really stiff pace. He's a colt that I think got very little to nothing out of his start before, like I mentioned, when he blew the brake in the American turf. And at the top of the stretch, he looked like he was going to win for fun. And now he did run out of gas a little bit. That race set up perfectly for late runners. I think the pace scenario is going to be much better in the Manila. Granted, there might be some horses that have some tactical ability, some chance to go for it at the break. But to me, they're drawn towards the middle and outside. I expect Junior Alvarado to send Maui Strong. And if he breaks well, I give him I like his chances wire to wire in the Grade 3 Manila Stakes on Friday.
Yeah, I like it. I was going to bring up Native Runner's good performance last week at Churchill as part of why I'm sure you can upgrade Maui Strong's chances. Obviously, even if not on the lead, I think you'd be fine with an inside stalking trip, just saving ground. That mile on the inner turf at Saratoga, obviously, really a great spot to be saving ground. You don't want to go too wide into either of the turns, really, on any turf course, but in that one in particular, I think there's a real premium on it. I think it's funny, James, there have been a plethora of 3-year-old turf races in the last 6 weeks, and arguably the one with the 2 best 3-year-old turf horses is a 1 mile, $200,000 Grade 3 race at Saratoga. So it's kind of funny how this Manila came up. And obviously Zulu Kingdom, who Chad Brown is backing up in distance a little bit, who was also entered in the Penn Mile, is going here. I think Chad a little concerned about that 9-furlong trip. I mean, obviously you think Zulu Kingdom, even if you like Maui Strong, is clearly the horse to beat, right?
Absolutely, because I think Zulu Kingdom, listen, he's not going to be far back early. He's still eligible to get his trip. But Maui Strong will definitely, I think, if he's not on the lead, will be up close. We'll get first run on him. And, it's a situation with both these 3-year-old turfers where there's these grade ones at a mile and an eighth, and then they got these mile stakes. But the 3-year-old male race is a grade three, so it has more value to me than the Wild Applause, which is a listed race for the 3-year-old fillies.
Nice 1 mile 3-year-old turf stake coming up in August at Colonial Downs, which gets underway next week, that we could potentially see Zulu Kingdom land on. So that is James's best bet Friday, race 8, 5:07 Eastern time in the Manila up at Saratoga. My best bet comes on Saturday at Saratoga, also in race 8. In there, I've gone to the 8 Final Verdict, who has been installed at 7-2 on the morning line. The morning line's been added since we made these selections. But this is a horse that's going to be ridden by Dylan Davis, who comes out of a race that's common amongst a few horses in this race. The winner actually is coming back in a stakes race over the weekend as well. But and that was Works For Me, who got an incredible trip up the inside. Final Verdict's a horse that wants to be forwardly placed. There's a confirmed frontrunner on the rail in here in Boats of Rock, and Twisted Filigree will be a little bit forward as well. But Final Verdict has really been at his most dangerous when he's able to stalk and beat the late runners to the punch. And I think that's exactly the kind of trip he's going to get this time around. He's run well locally at Saratoga, and I'm projecting him to be just in a similar spot to where he was. I think this field top to bottom is a little bit weaker than this group that he ran into here. The other thing about this, James, is that from a race dynamic standpoint, if you're looking at Final Verdict, the horses who were anywhere near him early, they're nowhere at the finish. And I won horses in that scenario that showed something from start to finish, and he really did. The horses that were running at Works For Me, late Antares and Run Curtis Run, are both solid allowance, light level stake types. So I think Final Verdict's a really good fit here at 7-2, and I'm going to try him. I was hoping for maybe a little bit better price, but I do think he'll end up somewhere around there in a spot where he can make some noise breaking from that outside. What did you make of this turf sprint if you've had a gander at it?
Yeah, I like your analysis. I'm big on these patterns too. I just think that race sets him up. And the reason why is because we saw this same pattern last year where it was mid-July, and then he came back a month later. And off of a really, I thought, good third that day in mid-July, came back and won his next start in good fashion. And same kind of pattern here where it was last month and he comes back a month later. And you're right about the trip. I do think that the presence of some other speed here, because sometimes he can be a little bit keen if there's not some pace signed on. He's eligible to sit a great trip just off it from the outside with Dylan Davis.
Yeah, I think the target would definitely help his chances. Well, let's get to the fades of the weekend. And James, you've been a little ambitious with this fade. I'm looking forward to you sharing it with everybody. Who is your fade of the weekend?
Yeah, I'm going to fade number 7 Nitrogen at 4-5 on the morning line in the Grade 1 Belmont Oaks. Listen, I mean, I give her a ton of respect. She's the best 3-year-old turf horse in America, right now, based on 5 consecutive graded stakes wins, 4 of them on the turf, including impressive showings in the Edgewood and the Appalachian before her last start, Nick. But one thing about Nitrogen was that, last time out in that off the turf wonder again, I mean, she came in the paddock and I mean, she was keyed up. And I do think that this Bessie Abbott did her a little bit of a favor, being her stablemate, and Dylan Davis just really hustling her from the gate because it was all Jose Ortiz could do. I thought just the settle her in second for the opening half mile. Once they got to the half mile point on the turn, there was no holding her back. I mean, she flew from the half mile point to she ran like 23 seconds. I mean, that was an impressive turn of foot, and she was keyed up that whole race. Now she wheels back 4 weeks later and she stretches the distance for the first time. I mean, she's, her forte so far has been 1 mile races. She's been able to get 8.5 furlongs. But the other options for her, like I said, I don't think Mark Cassey wanted to go to the Wild Applause, which is a $150,000 listed stake. He's going to give her a shot at 9 furlongs in this race. I don't know if that's her best distance. And I'm also a little bit concerned because I do think that a couple of these rivals, number 2, Opulent Restraint, off of a front running win in her last time out, or front running second, excuse me, in the memory of Silvers, and Totally Justify, who was chasing a solid pace last time and appears to be rounding towards a good effort, are going to sort of keep things honest up there. So I think she could be, if she doesn't settle off, and I'm worried about that after her last race, also going a distance for the first time and just catching some of these rivals. Some of these rivals, obviously, she's beaten before, but I think some like Fionn and others are in better form now, are more suited to the 9 furlong distance, and that makes Nitrogen off of 6 or 7 consecutive wins a potential underlay in my book at odds on.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the concern here is a little bit of what you alluded to, which is that this is the best group of 3-year-old fillies she's faced on turf. And with all due respect to the likes of Lush Lips and Vixen, Lush Lips was a very impressive winner last week. And the regret or wasn't the regret, it was a different, I don't remember the name of the race, but was a really nice winner at Churchill. And but this is the best in terms of depth, right? Top to bottom. This horses like Fionn, who's really getting into form, as you said, Mayday Ready, who arguably, I mean, not even really arguably, was a better 2-year-old filly than Nitrogen. Nitrogen has just improved so much. You know, she reminds me a little bit of Catch a Glimpse, right? Catch a Glimpse looked so flawless through the first half of 2016. She ended up winning the Belmont Oaks, and then her campaign was sort of derailed from that point forward. And I wonder if maybe Nitrogen has just gotten really good while the competition's been a little bit on the lesser side, because so many barns point to the back half of the year with these horses. And I will admit that I didn't have the gumption to make her my fade, so I'm glad that you did. That's why we're a perfect complementary duo on this particular episode, because you definitely had the nerve to do it, and I'm glad to see it. And look, if you can beat a 4-5 shot like Nitrogen in any of the multi-race plays on Saturday at Saratoga, you are going to be rewarded very, very handsomely, and I'm sure that you're going to be looking to do so. And you've got a couple of horses that you mentioned as the ones that you'll try and do it with.
Yeah, absolutely, I'm definitely I'll use even that Opulent Restraint, but Fionn and Totally Justified are the main rivals in my eyes.
I agree completely. Let's go to my fade, which is going to come in Saturday's Smile Sprint down at Gulfstream Park. I will, of course, have expert picks for Gulfstream on Saturday. And the 6th is a Smile Sprint, a race that harkens back to the Summit of Speed from days gone by, but now a $75,000 stake run at Gulfstream. And I made my fade the 1 Implementation. This is a horse who's 7-5 on the morning line, comes in off a win in the Army Mule. He was entered in the interim in a couple of different spots for Saffie Joseph Jr. and is now going here. My thought, James, is this horse is better going longer than 6 furlongs, and there is no pace to speak of in this race whatsoever. So he's going to have a really, really hard time uncoiling that late stride. He was a nice-looking winner of that Army Mule, and it was a good field all in all, top to bottom. But he's going to be so out of position in here at a really, really short price. I also thought it was worth noting that in the last 30 days at Gulfstream, Saffie Joseph is only 18% with a $1.06 ROI. And those aren't exactly Saffie-like numbers. So this might be the right time to try and take a swing against a horse like this. It's unfortunately not in the pick 5, but it does kick off the Rainbow 6 if you're of that disposition and you want to try it. I think Implementation is a horse that you can take a stand against at a pretty short number. So that is the approach that I'm going to take. As far as my pick in there goes, I'll likely try and wire the field with Air Combat, who comes in off a good second behind Shaq Diesel. But beating Implementation, definitely the goal in that Smile Sprint. We've seen a few good Smile Sprints along the way. Hopefully we can get a big favorite beaten here, James.
Yeah, and the rail draw does him no favors. And yeah, if Saffie starts cooling off, that creates some opportunities to try to beat some of his short-priced horses. And you really laid out good reasons to take on Implementation.
No question. I appreciate it. Well, what else are we watching for from your perspective on this upcoming weekend?
Well, I wanted to mention that just to highlight 3-year-old stakes around the country on Saturday in the Iowa Derby. Magnitude, who was last seen posting a 9 3/4 length win in the Grade 2 Risen Star. He got a huge number for that effort, Nick. And, you know, that was a performance at the time afterwards. It was, I think it was easy to praise him, but the fact that he just had everything his own way on the lead like he did over a track that seemingly was favoring early types. It was a performance you wanted to see him back it up. So He had to unfortunately head to the sidelines with an ankle chip. He's back now. That I don't think this race has much luster because the second choice on the morning line, Big Truz, it looks like it's going to offer the Indiana Derby. So I'll just be watching to see how Magnitude fares and, in a sense, rooting for him because I'd like to see. I always like to see some added intrigue in the 3-year-old division. These up and coming types at Indiana, Horseshoe Indianapolis, excuse me. But before I get to the stake, I wanted to mention that the race 11 is the Indiana Oaks, Nick. And I'm a big fan of this Clickett. She's 8-5 on the morning line, but I think this 3-year-old filly division is ripe for some runners to step up here in the summer, early fall. I was a fan of Shred the Nars allowance win. I was intrigued to see her in the Acorn. Unfortunately, she got hurt. I really liked Clickett's allowance win on May 31st, that Saturday program at Churchill Downs. Beat a nice field for Brendan Walsh, a quality road filly out of Tappet. So I'm hoping, I think she's going to run well in that. And then the feature is the Indiana Derby. And like I said, that Big Truz is in there. He's he's intriguing, stretching to 2 turns, being by Justify out of a Curlin mare, excuse me. But it will be his first 2-turn start. I think Tip Top Thomas will be shorter than 6-1 for Pletcher off of a real nice allowance win. Got Derby alumni Coal Battle entered in there, and Publisher. Chunk of Gold's entered, but I think he's going to opt for another race. Could be potentially coming out. But Publisher and Coal Battle are 2 horses that will take some money. I like number 9, Instant Replay. I don't know. I don't think he's per se like. I think Admiral Dennis is a 3-year-old that can really continue to step up for Brad Cox. I don't know if Instant Replay's in that same mold, but I do like his last win in the Texas Derby on an off track. I liked his effort before that in the Bathhouse Row. I just think that he's eligible to get it. The one thing I like about a horse like Instant Replay is that to me, he was able to sit closer seemingly in his last couple of starts, and that will serve him well instead of being such a one-run dedicated closer. I'll give him the edge, but it is an intriguing race, the Grade 3 Indiana Derby on Saturday.
Yeah, going to be great to see these horses in the second half of the year, and having Magnitude back feels like a big win for racing in the 3-year-old division, all in all. So very much looking forward to that. I can cross promote here and say that we also have the Indiana Horseshoe Indianapolis contest at TwinSpires.com, a $600 buy-in, which will of course cover the Saturday program at Horseshoe Indianapolis. So definitely a day we're really looking forward to. 12 noon first post for our friends over in Shelbyville, Indiana. My what to watch this weekend, James, comes in the 8th race on Saturday at Los Alamitos Racecourse, and I will of course have expert picks for Los Alamitos as well. But Copian is a filly that I think really has just been incredibly dynamic in her last 3 starts, including that Derby City Distaff on Kentucky Derby Day. And considering how well we all knew she ran in that race, to see what Ways and Means came back and did at Saratoga in her next start in the Bed of Roses on Belmont Stakes weekend, and the way Copian beat her with such ease. Yes, I understand Ways and Means was coming back off a layoff, but Copian was coming back off a bit of a break too. I think Copian is incredibly good, James, and I'm excited about her running wherever she lands. And while this race isn't necessarily one that you would necessarily handpick to vault a horse maybe to a year-end championship, I think it's obviously being utilized by Richard Mandela because it's in Southern California, and she's stabled there, of course. But I can't wait to see Copian run again. I'm hopeful that we see her back east at some point this summer. The only Grade 1 objective potentially being the Ballerina, but I know we'll see her at Del Mar, God willing, if she can stay healthy. And I think she's just outstanding. I was really taken by her effort on Derby Day, as I'm sure you were as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Her last 2 races, and both of them this year, the Santa Monica in early February and the Derby City Distaff, I thought they were brilliant, just sensational performances. I do think this Filly Mare sprint division is deeper, it looks like, than recent years. But and Copian will have to hold her form, to the fall. But she's clearly the standout right now off of especially that last race. It was outstanding. We'll face the defending champ in there, and Sweet Azteca, who looked awesome winning the Great Lady M last year at odds on. And unfortunately got hurt before the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. I do think, Nick, it's interesting. I mean, Del Mar doesn't have like these dirt sprints for fillies and mares. I mean, the Rancho Bernardo's on Pacific Classic Day, but it's like $150,000 Grade 3. I mean, if she's going to run in the Ballerina in late August, this is the one race to prep her in. So I would think that is the strategy, and then go back to Del Mar for the Filly and Mare Sprint.
Let's hope so, because that would be a treat for her to come east and potentially face Ways and Means again before the Breeders' Cup itself. Well, James, that's it for our What to Watch as well. And so we've run down the entire agenda on this program. My friend will, of course, be tuned in to get all of your analysis on the weekdays at Saratoga, at the upcoming meet, and everywhere else we can find it.
All right, Nick. It's always a pleasure to be on with you. Best of luck this weekend.
Same to you, my friend. Happy 4th of July to everybody out there. Of course, we wouldn't want to sign off without reminding you of the $200 sign-up bonus and all the promos going on at TwinSpires.com. Also mention the tournament this weekend. There is an Ellis Park tournament in addition next weekend. That's a qualifier for the Mint Millions Betting Challenge coming up in September on TwinSpires.com. Get involved in those tournaments. They've obviously been really well received. Platform's outstanding and a lot of hard work going into it there. Well, that is it for this 2-man edition of The Jury. The full squad will likely be back next week, which means they can retire me after this one-start engagement. Thank you to all of you for tuning in. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Best of luck. Make sure you're playing along with us, of course, always at TwinSpires.com.
When it comes to horse racing, you can never have too much information. With TwinSpires, you can place your bets with confidence. Whether you use handicapping insights like our Brisnet speed ratings, prime power and past performances, the guidance of our experts' top picks, or just choose a name that catches your eye. Yes! No matter how you pick your horse, bet with TwinSpires. And now you can race to victory with TwinSpires tournaments.